I should have listened to my lawyer and not watched this DVD. He didn't help at all. It only affected me, and I was destroyed. It was all over a few weeks ago. I could just leave it in the safe and not look at it. My anger would remain the same. The feeling of betrayal would remain, but my soul would be intact. But I couldn't leave it alone. It was like an itch that I had to scratch. The year before, I noticed slight changes in my wife. She began to dress better, spend more money on clothes that I didn't think were possible, and later began to stay on the streets with what she called girls. I don't know how 5 middle-aged women can consider themselves girls, but whatever. The most important sign was that she was happy. My wife was a self-centered harridan, an unpleasant woman, especially an older one, who often gets angry and often tells other people what to do, and happiness was not included in the list of her useful qualities, until she became even colder towards me and the children. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. We are used to the fact that our home is the place where she comes to sleep, and our family is a verbal punching bag. Now she didn't even pretend to care. She didn't call to say she'd be late, didn't prepare food for the children. After I received a printed Amazon gift card left on the dinner table for my birthday, and it didn't arrive until 11:00 that night, I decided enough was enough. When the children told her about our trip to Mouth of Beppo to celebrate and asked why she didn't come, she hurried to put them to bed. Her face was red. You couldn't wait. You just couldn't wait for the weekend. Now I'm bad. Just damn wonderful. Dad is a damaged hero. Again. I sat with the Shiner Bock in my hand and looked at her. You must be joking. We left the house only at 7. We've been waiting for you for an hour and a half. Have you ever checked your messages? Your daughter called you 3 times. You know? Go you. Why did you come home anyway? Next time, just stay there. I rose to my feet, slightly tipsy from the red wine with dinner and 3 beers in a row after we got home. I walked up the stairs to the bed, stripped down to my underwear, and crawled under the covers. She came in 15 minutes later. I don't know if she felt guilty or if it was an attempt to give her a birthday present. I couldn't remember the last time I yelled at her, and I think she decided reconciliation was the way to go. I know we've been a little distant lately, honey, but we can work things out. You know I love you. We haven't had sex in over 5 weeks and haven't made love in years. I wish I could roll over and ignore her, but I wasn't strong enough. But I smelled it, Eros by Versace. The aroma was faint, perhaps a few hours ago, but it was there. I use Fierce by Abercrombie & Fitch, but my kids gave me a bottle of what I smelled on it for my birthday. I shouldn't have been surprised by the consequences, but they were unexpected and hit me in the face. I felt the Italian food rising in my throat, ran to the toilet, and lost my dinner. After rinsing my mouth, I sat on the toilet, trying to think. Anthony, are you okay? She was outside the door. No, I'm not okay, you cheating bitch. I got sick. I need a few minutes. Fine. Then I'll sleep in the guest room. I don't want to catch anything. Thank you for your comfort and support, cheater. Fine. What was I going to do? The next morning, I used the store's computer and found a surprising number of private investigators. Who would have thought that Colorado was a hotbed of illegal activity? How was I supposed to determine which one was the best? I had no idea. I chose the one whose website seemed the most professional to me. Within 2 weeks, I had all the information I needed. She cheated with our child's pediatrician. I shouldn't have been surprised. Most likely, she wanted to improve her status. He was divorced and in his 40s or 50s. Dr. Burroughs had a lot of money, and that's all she cared about. She was self-serving, and I knew about it for at least 10 years. Her brother was Jerry Hernandez, the legendary middleweight boxer. He bought us a house when we got married, and we lived on the same block as her other siblings and her mother. Jerry bet on me when I quit my corporate job and became a professional glassblower. He bought all the necessary equipment and owned 10% of my business. When I returned the money to him, he returned his share. I achieved good results. Working as an artist rather than a commercial drone made me happy, but not my beloved wife. It was too risky financially until I bought her a BMW. She calmed down, but was still not happy about having to tell her friends that I was an artist who worked in a studio in the backyard. Every time I tried to pay her brother, she complained, "He doesn't need money, he's rich." One day I tried to explain that it wasn't that he needed money. If she understood, which I doubted, then she didn't care. Any money we received was ours, and she'd be damned if it went to someone else. Strangely, this worldview did not extend to other people's money. She constantly made Jerry pay for her. It took me 6 years to pay my brother-in-law with the money I was hiding from my wife. He always tried to refuse the payments I made every few months because that's the kind of person he is. I kept making payments because that's the kind of person I am. When Jerry died and lost his money, he could no longer help her. The house was in her name, and she immediately put it up for sale. A few weeks later, we moved to Pueblo. The small town in which we raised our children was too provincial for her. I think she saw her brother one more time before he died. I took the kids to see him almost every weekend. She told me that I made her look bad by going without her. So yes, I knew who and what my wife was. Unfortunately, I still loved her. I think I loved her until I walked into the doctor's office. Her car was in the parking lot, so I knew she was there. The children were old enough to cook their own dinner and be unattended for a while. His clinic was located in an office complex with other white-collar firms. The door to his office was locked, and I nearly dislocated my shoulder when I decided I was macho enough to kick it down. Jumping away from the door, I grabbed the fire extinguisher that was nearby and hit the door handle several times with the metal can. A minute later, the door opened and I was inside. The clowns and Disney characters that decorated the walls seemed to mock me as I approached the adulterous couple. Is this what she cheated on me for? They didn't even suspect my presence. He was silent in shock, looking at me with his mouth open. She wasn't that quiet. Anthony. Anthony, get out of here. Get out. I haven't been in a fight since 4th grade. I was not a retired Navy SEAL. I didn't even take boxing advice from Jerry. I hit him and told my wife, "Don't come home this time. Just stay away from us." I got out and went to the hospital. I called my aunt and asked her to come and stay with the children until I returned home. Nothing was broken in my arm or wrist, but it hurt like hell. They bandaged me, gave me a prescription for painkillers and anti-inflammatories, and sent me home. They were visible from the end of the block. I slowed down and then stopped, looking at the 2 police cars parked in front of our house. I thought about turning around and going to a hotel for the night, finding a lawyer and giving up, but I was too tired to fight. I just wanted it all to end. For as long as I can remember, her presence has cast a pall over our lives, and it has exhausted me mentally and spiritually. I'll spend the night in jail, post bail, and take the kids. We could stay with my aunt until I come up with a long-term plan. Yes, not very well intended. When I pulled up, she started screaming and pointing. Hiding halfway behind the door, she did a great job of pretending to be scared. This bitch was setting me up. I turned off the car, keeping my hands visible, and slowly walked out into the driveway. The police behaved professionally. One of them held his hand to his holster, and the other slowly walked towards me and spoke. "Mr. Anthony Cato." "Yes, I admit I broke into that bastard's office and hit him, but I never touched my wife. I assume I'll be arrested." Looking at my house as I was being handcuffed, I saw my aunt leading my eldest son away from the window. My wife smirked as the officer put his hand on my head to make sure I was safely in the back seat of the car. The only authorized phone call I made was to my cousin Mateo. We grew up together and were more like brothers than cousins. He found me the best lawyer in town and arranged bail. I couldn't get within 500 feet of her or my children. There was no way I could contact them. Thanks to Mateo's lawyer and Dr. Burrows, who didn't want fathers to know he was sleeping with his patients' mothers. I only served 60 days and was given a long parole. It could have been worse, but not seeing my kids was killing me. After my release, I received supervised visits, 1 hour a week, and I paid for the supervision myself. Mateo lent me enough money to put a down payment on a house. This was the same house where we raised our children. My old workshop building was still there, and I had to take the sheriff with me when I took my tools and equipment from the house where my cheating wife and my children were still living. Like a wounded animal, I crawled back to where I felt safe. This is where I was happiest. I started working again, and Mateo became my biggest client. I don't know what exactly he did for a living. Although I had a rough idea, he did the same thing we did as children. He found people who had something to sell, found people who wanted what was selling, and brought them together for a percentage of the sale. Did I think this was all legal? Not at all. Mateo knew how to bring the right people together, and as long as it didn't harm the innocent, he didn't care what the deal was. He entrusted me with work on elite vases and paid exorbitant fees for it. In turn, he sold the vases to the people he helped, and they paid him huge amounts of money per vase. According to accounting, his money now came from selling vases that should have cost less than $1,000 for tens of thousands of dollars. The divorce went through the entire court system, and now she insisted on unsupervised dates. I was surprised how long it took her to complete this step. Now that she actually had to become a mother, she didn't care. If she could sometimes shift the children to me, it gave her the freedom to go off and do whatever she wanted with whoever she wanted. The previous year, I made $52,000. Not bad, but not great either. The cost of living in our area wasn't too high, so she didn't have to work. We lived at the lower limit of comfort. Her lawyer used this amount to extract alimony and child support from me. I asked Mateo to withhold my salary, or share, or whatever you want to call it. Including his orders, I expected to earn a little over $125,000 that year. I would argue with her about the percentage she was getting on $52,000, but I wouldn't put up much of a fight. When the divorce was finalized, she sent me a long letter. I did not open the envelope, but it seemed to me that it must have contained at least 5 sheets of paper. I knew her, so I guessed what would be written in them. I was a failure, should have made more money, overreacted to Dr. Burroughs' thorough medical examination. It was all my fault. I took it to my workshop and reduced it to ashes with a blowtorch. Several weeks passed, and I still couldn't stop thinking about that DVD. It was like Chinese water torture. Always there, always knocking on the door of my consciousness. Cap. Did she tell him about me? Cap. Is it all my fault? Cap. Will the DVD tell me why she destroyed our family? Cap. Finally, I plugged it into my laptop and sat down with a fifth of Jack. The sight of my wife with Dr. Burroughs did not destroy me. To be honest, it was a bit boring. What stole my life were her words. She married me because Jerry liked me. Her brother was her livelihood, and she wanted him to be happy. This bitch thought she was making a sacrifice for her brother. If she married me to make him happy, she should have no problem sleeping with me. It was depressing, but not heartbreaking. I cringed when she told the good doctor that I was not the biological father of any of our 3 children. It's strange, but the first thing that came to my mind was what kind of crazy woman thinks that such conversations in bed will help you find a new husband. The video was detailed enough that I could see him wince and a look of disgust flash across his face. I missed the next visit, not because he loved them less, but because he climbed into the bottle and began drinking all day long. A couple of weeks later, Mateo was on my porch. I looked like crap, but so did he. If hygiene were the deciding factor, he would definitely win. I stared at his bald head and pale skin for too long, and finally he spoke. "Will you invite me in?" "Oh yes, of course. Sorry." I opened the door for him and looked for beer in the refrigerator. Handing him one bottle, I took one for myself, then thought and put mine back. "So, What are you doing here, Mateo? Nothing special. You haven't answered your calls for over 2 weeks. You didn't call anyone. You missed a date with the kids. My mom is very angry about it, by the way, and you owe me 4 vases. You smell like a homeless person, and the house is a mess. But other than that, everything is fine. I sat down on the couch, and Mateo brushed some newspapers off his chair before sitting down as well. Talk to me, Anthony. What's happening? I took a deep breath, released the air, and began. Damn it, kids. What about the children? Everything is all right with them. They are not my children. What the hell are you talking about? Who told you this? My ex-wife. This is on video from a private investigation. She told the doctor. I think this psychopath was bragging. My cousin's face was filled with anger and sadness. He paused before answering. She is a woman of easy virtue. She's pathetic and deceitful. If it had been in the trash can, I would have just gone over to close the lid. First, tests need to be done to see if she is telling the truth. And then send it. You raised these children. You are more of a parent to them than she is. You need to get yourself in order. Shave, take a shower, eat something sensible, and we'll go talk to your lawyer. You need to seek full custody. Mateo may not have the most extensive vocabulary, but he was my cousin and best friend. While I was taking a shower, he cleaned up the house. He dragged my Weber grill to the front of the house and was already filling it with charcoal when I walked out onto the porch. Hey, you look human again. That's what we're going to do. We'll go to Pueblo to see a lawyer, and then we'll try to see your children. We need to get on CPA's radar guardianship and guardianship services, or those who determine the order of custody and visits. Then you'll fly with me back to Los Angeles. Barbara will be glad to see you. I will bring you back here for your next official visit. That's what we did. We spoke with a lawyer who promised to talk to the right people and mitigate any damage caused by my missing the appointment. She let us see the kids because it allowed her to get out and do what she wanted. She stopped me on my way out of the house. Anthony, I need money. Find a job. I have to look after the kids, idiot. I stopped and counted to 10. Find a part-time job. Be reasonable. It's just money. This is my money. My money. You got everything you're owed. You have a house and a car, and now you want more. I know for sure that Mateo's mother buys things for the children. You won't get another cent from me. Mateo called from the driveway. Anthony, let's go. He was right. Staying and talking to her was a waste of time. I turned around and left her standing there. It wasn't about her. It was about my children. We took them to the cinema and to dinner. They were happy to see Uncle Mateo, and we all went to my aunt's for dessert. Mateo took 3 pies, 4 gallons of ice cream, and a wad of money for his mother. I was not allowed to visit the children unattended, but how could I be guilty if I happened to be nearby when they were visiting their uncle? We were flying to Los Angeles when Mateo came back from the bathroom, sat down, and a small bottle of medicine fell out of his pocket. He was sweating and his hand was shaking as he tried to lift it. I picked it up. Are you okay? Yes, just a little unwell. Flu or something like that. Nothing special. I read the label. What is this? Nothing. Just take it a couple times a day and I'll be fine for 72 hours. Seriously, no big deal. Don't tell Barb about this. I don't want her to worry. Fine. We'll pump you full of vitamin C. It'll kick his ass. Maybe matzo ball soup. He didn't look well, so I was glad to hear it was just the flu. This must have been the end of the illness, as he did not cough or sneeze. I was hoping it wasn't contagious since we had just spent the day with my kids. We landed, grabbed our luggage, and headed to the parking lot. It felt like there were more people at Lax than there were living in Pueblo. I said a prayer to the traffic gods as Mateo drove us out of the airport in his caddy. Since visiting him and Barbara, I have learned to live in fear of the 405. He kept his eyes on the road as he spoke. Are you hungry? Certainly. Barbara is going to order Thai food, so how hungry are you? If you're asking, should I grab some Thai food after visiting In and Out? The answer is absolutely. Ha, you are definitely my cousin. Great meat, we're on our way. We pulled into his driveway, and I stood there for a moment, enjoying the view before unbuckling myself. I liked his house. It felt cozy. It was a nice house on a large plot of land. They didn't have children, so they didn't need a lot of space in the house. Everything was done in pastel colors that matched the stucco. They had 2 avocado trees, one in front and one in back. The first few years of visiting them, I nearly jumped out of my skin when an avocado would fall and land on the metal roof above their closed porch. It was too perfect to walk into the backyard and pick a lemon from one tree and an avocado from another. 20 minutes later, you were sitting by the pool with the world's freshest guacamole. Barbara met us at the door. A tall, slender woman, she made their house a home. She was born and raised in California, but she reminded me of the stereotypical Southern belle. Barb was the epitome of graciousness and comfort. After kissing Mateo, she came over and hugged me. She said quietly in my ear, "I'm so sorry, Anthony. You don't deserve any of this." Stepping back and holding my shoulders at arm's length, she brushed her blonde hair out of her face and looked into my eyes. "Mateo missed you." "Me too. We're happy you're here. If you ever need it, this is your home. You are always welcome." Dropping her hands, she began to turn, but then looked back. Looking at me again, she frowned and turned to her husband. "You idiot stayed at the In and Out, didn't you?" Mateo laughed. "Don't blame me. He cried about it the entire flight. In the end, I had to give in." Barb laughed too, and we sat and poked around while she enjoyed pad see and chicken satay. After dinner, we started talking. Barb asked about my new, once-old house. We talked about her mother-in-law, which led to a conversation about children. Seeing how this affected me, she tried to switch the conversation to something more mundane, movies, current events, and so on, in order to maintain the conversation without plunging me into dreary melancholy. I smiled, appreciating her efforts. Mateo is lucky. He hit the marriage jackpot while my marriage was a loser from the start. It's okay, Barb. It hurts, but there's no point in running away from it. Yes, she set me up and I spent time in jail. After that, she took most of our property and house and began to receive crazy alimony for the amount that I earned. I hate her for this, but children, it just destroyed me. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I'm still kind of in a fog. Well, while you and my husband were having fun, I was doing some work. 3 sets of DNA should be here by 5 o'clock tomorrow. You take swabs from the children, and we will find out whether she was lying or not. I spoke with attorney Mateo, and he recommended a colleague who specializes in family law. Have you thought about annulling your marriage? You have a video of her admitting that it was all a scam from the start, and she immediately started cheating. If the marriage is annulled, she will no longer receive alimony. Stunned, I stared at her. Could this work? Seriously, this is genius. Yeah, I don't want her to get a dime. We'll go to the lawyer tomorrow afternoon. It looks like you have a good chance of getting an annulment. Mateo spoke. In the morning, I need to go to San Diego for work. Speaking of work, I need those vases. Anthony, we'll put the same equipment in your backyard that you have in your home. Consider this your workshop away from home. Looking at him, I saw that his left hand was shaking on the table next to the plate. He pulled her towards him and dropped her onto his lap. I looked up to find him looking at me and shaking his head slightly. I looked at Barb, then at him, and said nothing. We talked a little more before heading to bed. Barb knocked and came into the guest room while I was unpacking. She put the pillowcases on the pillows, saying nothing while I thought about Mateo. I looked up as she started to walk away. Thank you, Barbara. It was hard. It's good to have a family. Hugging me again, she spoke into my ear. I'll say it again. You didn't deserve what she did to you. You're a good man, Anthony. When I woke up, Mateo was no longer there. Angry at myself for not talking to him before he left, I showered and grabbed granola and soy milk for breakfast. Barb and my cousin fit the California stereotype perfectly. I was hoping we wouldn't have tofu for dinner. He was right. A duplicate of all my equipment was in a new large shed in the backyard. I worked until about noon when Barbara arrived with lemonade. She was wearing a light blue sundress with a yellow belt. It went well with her corn silk hair and blue eyes. I was terribly sweaty. Smiling, she handed me the lemonade. We need to leave in about 45 minutes. Okay, thank you. I'll finish here and take another shower. We met with an attorney who made sure I understood that he was just providing me with general information and that if I wanted to move forward, it would have to be a lawyer in Colorado. He asked a lot of questions, and I gave him as many answers as I could. He confirmed that my case looked good, and I was happy for the first time in a long time. Barb tried to pay, but I refused. I had a decent amount of money that was sitting with Mateo until I needed it. I paid for the consultation, and we had lunch before heading home. It was seafood, not tofu. She noticed my worsened mood, and we sat for almost 2 hours, talking about old times, laughing at jokes from Mateo's and my childhood. He called and said he had to stay the night. I walked out to the pool when Barb hung up and called him. It went to voicemail. I tried again, and again voicemail. I sent a message. Stop being a fool and call me back. Now, he called back. I was in the toilet. The guy can't take a leak? Okay, sorry. I don't know. I thought you were avoiding me. What? Mateo, what happened to your hand last night? Trembling. It's okay. Remember when I broke my arm? There was a little nerve damage there, and now that I'm getting older it haunts me a little when I'm tired. Look, I appreciate your concern, cousin. But this is really bullshit. This is all? All. Stop worrying about me and get busy with the vases. Barb and I changed into our swimsuits and headed to the pool. She laughed as I jumped when the avocado hit the metal sheet. Embarrassed, I smiled at her, a little shy. We enjoyed white wine and warm water until we began to feel sleepy. Mateo returned the next morning, and I spent the entire day in the studio working on his vases. He opened an account for me where he kept most of the money he paid so that my ex-wife could not lay hands on it. There was about $17,000 there, and I asked him to withdraw $5,000 in cash. When I wasn't working, the three of us ate, swam, laughed, and talked. The next day repeated itself, and the next day I flew on a date with the children. I met them at the House Cheaters, and we spent time together in my old workshop. I spent a lot of money from Mateo on gifts. My children were not spoiled and would have been happy to see me without gifts, but they were children, so they were a little confused. The newest iPhones were a big hit, and my oldest let out something that sounded like yit. I had no idea what that meant, but I figured it was good. The social worker told me this would be the last week of supervised visits, and my time was increased to 4 hours every Saturday. After 60 days, this time will be reviewed and possibly extended. She always maintained an aura of professionalism while also being a sweet lady. I always brought lunch for the kids and a sandwich or something for her. The first few times she refused, but the more she got to know my ex-wife, the more she warmed up to me. The social worker watched me carefully as I told the kids that I bought us all memberships to Ancestry.com company that manages a network of genealogical, historical records. They didn't ask questions while I swabbed their DNA. When I finished, she frowned and stopped me as I approached the workshop door. Is there anything I should worry about, Mr. Cato? Don't think. Why should you worry? The kids had a great time. And me, of course, too. Did you see something that I didn't? Mr. Cato, isn't one DNA test enough? You made all 3 children take swab tests. You know what children are like. If one of them has one, they all want one. I see them once a week. I didn't want jealousy to arise. Yes, fine. You have my business card. Please call me if you decide there is something we need to discuss. Necessarily. Have a nice week. As I was getting into the car, the cheater ran up the steps from the house. Anthony, do not leave. She came up to me when I was getting into the car and held the door. Listen, I need to get some money. The kids need clothes, and we have a problem with the boiler. The boiler is under warranty. Call them to come. Next week, the children will be with me for 4 hours. I'll take them shopping. Anthony, honey, can't you just help me? Listen, I'm not your husband anymore, and I'm definitely not your friend. Do you need money? Get off your ass and get a job. Do you want someone to give you things? Find another sucker. I need to go. Get your hands off my car. What about your children, you selfish freak? I sat and got mad. Taking my eyes off the steering wheel, I stared at her. Mine what? Did you say, my children? Fear showed on her face. I knew her. It was not the fear that I would find out. It was not the fear of being disgraced. It was the fear of losing alimony. She let go of the car door. I slammed it and got out of the car. While sitting at the airport waiting for my flight back to Los Angeles, I called my neighbor Jennifer Cruz. Hi, Jennifer. This is Anthony. Hello, Wanderer. How are you doing? Okay, thank you. Listen, I'm going to be in Los Angeles for a while. Can you do me a favor and pick up the mail and keep an eye on the house? Certainly. Hey, can you make those little glass things that people put in their windows and they refract the light? Yes, I can make them. What, do you need some? No, I heard that the woman from the council, Camberly, wants to order 100 of them for Christmas for her main sponsors. I thought you could give them your information and get your foot in the door. Jennifer, how do you know all this? Oh, I keep my ears open. Okay, thanks for warning me and keeping an eye on this place. I'll be back next week. Mrs. Eggers Cruz had a heart of gold, but she was a gossip on steroids. She always knew what was going on in everyone's affairs. Barb cooked dinner for me and Mateo came to pick me up. On weekends, the traffic was less severe, and we enjoyed the trip. He spoke, changing lanes from one lane to another. Hey, I need a favor. Certainly. Name her. I need to meet with a few people tomorrow night about a deal, but Barbara has a charity event coming up that she needs to attend. I just found out about the meeting today, and I can't refuse it. Can you take her? Yes, of course, I think so. Is this formal? Yes. You can have my tuxedo. The tuxedo? Seriously? This doesn't seem like the event is for me. You can handle it. Just stay with Barb and let her tell you everything. Okay, of course. That evening we had dinner together, played cards, and went to bed. The next day I returned to work on the vases, finishing at 2 p.m., showered and shaved. Mateo's tuxedo fit me as if it had been made especially for me. When I left my room, my cousin gave me a wolf whistle. Barbara patted him on the shoulder. You look very good, Anthony. Are you ready to go? She was stunning. Wearing a tight red dress, her slender curves were highlighted and put on full display. I've seen her in a swimsuit countless times, but this was somehow different. I froze in place for a minute and Mateo laughed. That's why you're coming, Ent. You can drive away all the lonely guys. Feel free to take your baton with you. Sorry, it was awkward. Barbara, you look amazing. She blushed, kissed her husband, and we left. The journey took 45 minutes. I kept looking back at Barbara and feeling guilty. I hadn't been with a woman in a very long time, and I clearly needed to change that as soon as possible. It was definitely an upscale event, and I was grateful I wasn't wearing one of my suits. I noticed the looks Barbara and I received as we entered the room, and then the looks from everyone else at our table as we sat down. Jealousy, pride, and shame waged a fierce battle in my soul, and there was no winner. We introduced ourselves to the people at our table, ordered our dinner, praying it wasn't the proverbial rubber chicken from the catering establishment, and headed to the dance floor. After Janelle Monáe's song Make Me Feel and two slow dances, I had to make some space between us. And again, I felt like an ass. We made a few silent bids at auctions to support pit bull rescues, and she took my hand. Anthony talked to me. She led me to an empty table at the back of the room. We sat down, and she looked around the room for a moment, trying to collect her thoughts. You are his best friend. He loves you like a brother. Tell me, do you think Mateo is okay? What should I have said? I felt like by saying something I would be breaking an unspoken trust. Apparently, she noticed my indecisiveness. I know how close you are, and you might not want to say things you don't think he'd want me to know, but if he's hiding something from me, I need to know. Anthony, a few weeks ago, I found him sleeping by the pool. He got so sunburned that he had to see a doctor. That day, he slept for more than 18 hours. When your equipment was delivered, he was talking to the couriers and began to slur his words. He said he was just tired, but I realized that it was more than that. I'm scared to death. I didn't know what to say. Stunned, I sat back in my chair. Barb, why would he hide this from us? When we first flew here, he looked very sweaty and pale. I was worried and noticed that his hands were shaking. A bottle of medicine fell out of his pocket. He said he had the flu. A few days ago at dinner, his hand was shaking so badly that he put it under the table so you couldn't see. This is believed to be nerve damage after he broke his arm. Did you see the label on the bottle? Do you know what kind of medicine it was or who prescribed it? No, I think it was Abatov, something like that. What should we do? Maybe talk to him face to face. Barb responded, holding back tears. Let me clear this up a little bit first. She took my hand again. Thank you, Anthony. Do you mind if we skip dinner? Maybe we can stop at In-N-Out on the way home. I joked with her, but there was some naturalness in the words home that frightened me. This was not my home. This was their home. My home was in Colorado. She stood up, hugged me, and we left. We walked through the door with In-N-Out bags, and Mateo was lying where we left him asleep on the couch. Did he go to the meeting? Barbara walked up to him and took his hand in her left. She stroked it with her right hand. Cute, Mateo? Blinking slowly, he looked at us both and smiled. Are you back so soon? Did you bring me hamburgers and fries? A terrible sadness settled in my stomach, and I didn't know why. It was a feeling of horror, and I could not believe that I could speak for even a minute. Certainly, I'm going to change out of your tuxedo. I don't want to pay for cleaning to get the grease and ketchup out of it. Barb looked puzzled. What? Anthony, this is your tuxedo. Mateo bought it for you last week. Looking from Barb to my cousin, I tried to suppress all the questions that were popping up in my head. Oh, good. Well, let me go change. He'd known for a week that I'd need a tuxedo for tonight. This was not a last-minute meeting, if there was a meeting at all. After changing, we enjoyed our meal while sitting by the pool. So, Maddie, what happened tonight? They called about half an hour after you left. The meeting was canceled. This sucks. Hope you didn't miss out on the deal. No, everything is okay. Barbara collected a few wrappers, put them in a bag, and headed to the kitchen. I saw her over Mateo's shoulder as she took his phone from the counter. She did a few scrolls and looked at me, shaking her head. I continued. So they just called and canceled the meeting out of the blue. Does this happen often? Sometimes. I'm not really in what people call a sustainable business. Life went on and Mateo looked tired, but otherwise everything was fine. I finished his vases and started working on a design to present to the councilwoman. I flew out on Friday evening. It was amazing to spend time with the kids, just the four of us. Whichever cute, no matter the woman from the social service, her presence was like an anchor holding down my emotions. I took them go-karting and treated them to lunch before returning them home. When this traitor left the house and started walking towards me, I put the car in reverse and drove away from there. humming to the radio during the 2-hour drive home. I was in a great mood. I needed to attract more clients, and Jennifer's suggestion could help me a lot. I needed to get the results of the DNA tests, but that was due on Monday. I needed to find out what I could do about an annulment, and on Monday morning I had an appointment with the same lawyer who handled my divorce. I desperately needed to be with a woman before I embarrassed myself in front of Barbara again. I spent Sunday working on samples for the Women's Council and making a few extra pieces for Jennifer as a thank you. Early in the evening, she came to my house with a mail, and we sat on the porch and chatted. She spoke softly but sternly as the 2 children approached with the cart. Be more gentle. The eldest child was a teenager, and the youngest was a girl of about 10 years old. The boy was black and the girl was Asian. There was a constant smile on the boy's face. Hello, I'm Ted. We live in this quarter. Do you want to buy vegetables? We raised them ourselves, with my dad and sister. She didn't do too much. She's still quite small. Oh, it's Wendy. I looked at Jennifer, who raised her eyebrows as if to say, don't screw this up. Sure, Ted. What do you have? We have cucumbers, tomatoes, basil, and peaches. But hey, if you buy $5, you'll get free recipes for everything you buy. It was a good weekend. Jennifer knew these kids, and they seemed genuine. Fine. Give me $10. Jennifer, do you want vegetables or peaches? Well, Anthony, I think I'll take $10 too. Ted picked out a bunch of vegetables and packed them into cardboard boxes, while Wendy used her phone to show me how to access the app, which she seemed very proud of. It included recipes, photos, and coupons for local grocery stores. We paid them, and they left happy. I gave Jennifer half of my purchase and made a salad for dinner. The morning meeting with the lawyer went well, and she agreed with the other lawyer's opinion that we had an excellent chance of getting an annulment. The DNA test results came back as promised and confirmed that I am the father of all 3 of my children. I had no idea what this deranged cheater was talking about. Did she really have so many lovers on the side that she decided that I could not possibly be their father? I was delighted. It was the best day in years. So far, this has not turned out to be the case. Barbara called me in the evening. Anthony, you have to come home. I heard tears in her voice. Oh God, Anthony, he has a brain tumor. The drive to Pueblo would take just under 2 hours. They had a direct flight leaving in 3 hours. I was on it. I didn't pack. I don't even think I locked the door. I was numb and couldn't think of anything. Thoughts flashed through my head about our childhood, about how he helped me after I found out about the betrayal. Did his mother know him? I almost called to ask her to babysit. I might have accidentally told my aunt that her son might be dying. When I went to the toilet on the plane, I sat on the toilet and began to cry. I pulled myself together when someone knocked on the door. After splashing water on my face, I gathered my strength and returned to my place. Feeling like an idiot, I stopped looking for Mateo at baggage claim. Hertz was kind enough to take my money, and I rented a small car. 90 minutes after leaving the airport, I was at their house. Why did I now think of this house as their house? What has changed with home? Sitting in the car in their driveway, I wondered if I had the strength to do this. Fuck my cousin. He was my brother. No child of my parents could be closer than Mateo. Getting out of the car, I went to the door. Barbara looked both terrible and wonderful when she answered my knock. She pulled me to her and hugged me, crying on my chest. Mateo was sitting on the sofa. Hey, I'm still alive, friends. Maybe that's enough tears for a while. I must have started crying because I sat down in the chair and just watched him for a while. Finally, he turned to me, indignant. Maybe it's enough. You're annoying me to death. I continued to watch him. How long have you known? For a long time. A long time ago. I closed my eyes for a second. Did you know before I found out about the betrayal? Yes. I'm not going to apologize for this. Mateo, why didn't you say anything? You were there for me when I needed you and robbed me of the opportunity to be there for you. If things go badly, I'll have to live with it. Okay? I understand what you're getting at. But the difference is that I could do something for you. Nobody can do anything for me. I was wrong. I didn't scream. It felt like a giant had kicked me in the stomach. With difficulty restraining myself, I asked a question to which I did not want to receive an answer. How much more? Probably less than 90 days. 90 days. I had less than 3 months left with a man for whom I was ready to take a bullet. What can I do? Do you want me to talk to your mom? He smiled sadly. No. Barb and I are flying with you next week to visit her. We'll talk to her when you're with the kids. By the way, did you find out anything about children? Despite the pain, I smiled. Yes, they are mine. All. This is amazing, and is it true? Fantastic. We would love them all equally, but really, it's just wonderful. Maddie, let me do something. What can I do? It's very selfish, but why not, right? I might as well move all my pieces to the center. If you could spend as much time with us as possible, not including time with the kids, it would mean a lot. I'm a little scared, and it's always been just the two of us against the world, you know? I seemed far from screaming. I'm not going anywhere. Maybe I'll offer this cheater money to take the kids to the airport so they can visit their aunt and uncle for a couple of weekends. His tumor was inoperable. We have spent the last months trying to make him as happy and comfortable as possible. He showed me where his money was so I could give it to Barbara when he was gone. Not in the figurative sense of giving me access to hidden accounts. He literally showed me his money. He buried bar after bar of gold on a property he owned outside of Ontario, in the desert. My ex-wife called a few weeks after I found out about Mateo's tumor. It was a strange conversation, and I felt like I was talking to a person in a capsule. Anthony, please don't hang up. I'm not asking for money, I just want information. At least she took a new approach. Okay, what do you want to know? I need to learn about skateboarding. I need to be closer to our children, and that's all Jimmy talks about. I didn't know what to answer. Was she trying to prank me? Why do you care? Look, I'm trying, okay? I'm trying. I know the kids always preferred you, but I thought I was at least somewhere in their hearts. Dad was always number one, but I thought I was at least a strong number two. Please, no obscene jokes. I was wrong. They don't know me, don't like me, and don't even care that they don't love me. I don't blame them or you. It's not easy, you know? I know I wasn't what I could have been, but I want to be better. Can you help me? Anthony, are you still here? Yes, sorry. I was just confused for a second. Listen, let me think about it and call you back tomorrow. Okay, Anthony? Thank you. Fine. I'm glad you called. Camilla. It was just weird. I've compiled basic information about what our kids like, including links to YouTube, local skateboard, camping, and comic shops, as well as Amazon links to textbooks for each activity. The next day, we spoke politely, and I emailed her the information. 2 weeks later, Aunt Sylvie moved in with us. I insisted that she take the guest room while I set up a futon in the workshop in the backyard. I worked half a day. Jennifer still looked after the house for me and mailed packages for Mateo. She knew us when we were boys, and she was at school. She remembered his love for chili verde and weekly sent several parcels. They came in triple-sealed Tupperware packaging for same-day delivery. I don't know how much it cost her, but when Mateo barely ate other food, he ate every ounce of what she sent. When I returned to Pueblo, I spoke with my lawyer. It turned out that, having been married for almost 2 decades and being the father of her 3 children, it was practically impossible to annul the marriage. If I wasn't a father, it would be a completely different story. I was fine with that. Paying her child support for 3 years was worth it to have the children as mine. The kids and I were about to leave for Los Angeles when Camille stopped me at the door. Children, wait in the car. Your dad will be out now. Whether they liked her or not, they obeyed. She turned to me, silently looking at the floor. "Camilla, I need to go." She raised her hand to touch me, stopped, and lowered it again. "You know better than anyone that I'm not the best cook, but wait a second." She took a large box and handed it to me. "Remember when we were children and there were 7 or 8 of us? We went to Sweeney's and chipped in some money and bought a couple of peanut butter pies and a Coke. Mateo adored them. Mine is probably really bad, but give it to him anyway. Tell him I tried, okay?" I forgot about it. I completely forgot about a lot of things about Camilla. I think I needed it to survive. She was right. He loved them. I'm sure he'll be delighted. That was nice of you. Anthony, I'm sorry. For all. Fine. I appreciate your words. Have a good flight. What the hell just happened? Who is this man? Mateo enjoyed interacting with the children and even ate some pie. The taste was not bad. He found it hard to believe that there was no ulterior motive in her behavior, but he wasn't going to look into the mouth of a gift of pie. After questioning the children lightly, he was convinced that she was really trying. There was a thaw in their emotions towards her, which I guess was a positive thing. He asked me to accompany Barb to another charity event. It was a circus for terminally ill children. Barbara was on the board of directors, and he insisted that she go. And she needs to go out. Try to make her smile. Just a few hours. This time I didn't have to wear a tuxedo. We really had fun and even had time to laugh. I felt guilty every time this happened, thinking about Mateo at home and the poor children around us. The event took place at an animal sanctuary, and there were a lot of people there. Everyone seemed to know and love Barbara, including most single men. She talked to everyone who interacted with her, including most single men. This was more annoying than it should have been. Mateo began to feel the need for equipment to renovate his home. I don't know what repairs he was thinking about while spending most of his time in bed, but he sent Barbara to get what he needed and asked me to go and help deliver it. We were walking down the aisle at Lowe's when she asked me without turning to look at me, "Does he think he's playing subtly?" I laughed. "I really hope not. How much do you want to bet that he'll say we bought the wrong thing and we should go to Home Depot? Maybe he'll insist that we eat lunch while we're gone." She laughed in response. We found the things we needed and headed out. We were already driving home when she addressed the elephant in the room. "Anthony, you know that I care about you, right? But this." "I know. He is a good man. Mateo tries to the last to do everything right. Let's make him happy and continue to do his little missions. And when this is all over, I'll go back to Colorado." She paused for a minute before responding with a soft, sad 2-syllable answer. "Oh, Key." He died 3 weeks later. I stayed for a week trying to help Barbara. If I had not done this, I would have lost myself in grief. And Sylvie, I stayed for another week, after which I went home. We all promised to meet regularly, but nothing came of it. 6 months after his death, I received a package in the mail. It included an itinerary with a ticket for a 2-week cruise and a DVD. I figured the video had information about the cruise ship and perhaps details about the various ports where it would be stopping. It could hardly be worse than what I received last time. The DVD was inserted into the laptop, and my cousin, my brother, appeared on the screen, looking frail and lying in his bed. "Hello, Anthony. Mom helps me do this. Mom, say hi." The angle changed and Aunt Sylvie waved to the camera. Turning back again, she focused on her son. "I'll tell you 2 things with confidence, and then I'll ask you for a favor. First, you're an idiot. Second, Barbara loves you. She always loved you, but only as a brother. Everything has changed over the past few months. I know her better than anyone. She's in love with you. I know you better than anyone. Do you love her? Listen to me carefully, Anthony. I want this to happen. I can't put it any clearer. I know that it will seem to you that this is some kind of betrayal if you are together. I repeat, this is what I want. I love you both and Mom more than anyone else on this planet. Please do this for me. If you doubt my sincerity, call your mom. Talk to her. Anthony, if you love me, if you respect me, go on this cruise. She needs you, and you need her. I love you, boy. We'll see each other again someday. It was a lovely room with a large balcony that must have cost him a fortune. I was alone, but that was okay. I couldn't expect her to feel the same way I did. She was rich, beautiful, and sophisticated. I was comfortable looking good and being a redneck. Everything was okay. It really was like that. I was going to enjoy the cruise and toast Mateo at every port along the way. For my first dinner on board, I wore the tuxedo he bought me. It was a little disappointing. From the movies I had seen, I expected everyone to be dressed to the nines. I sat down and introduced myself to the others at the table. We were chatting as the men and a few women looked over my shoulder, staring past me. Does this seem like this is where I should be? I turned and stood up. She was wearing the same red dress from the charity auction. She was the most beautiful woman here, or maybe anywhere. Smiling, I pulled out a chair for her. I swallowed hard before answering. Yes, I think so.